Fishers bring others to God. Shepherds look out for how we treat each other. And those relate to those two new commands from Matthew 22. Now, what does it mean for you or for me? What kind of a person are you? Which of the personality types are you? How does your faith or your spirituality demonstrate your Christianity? I think that fishing for people, making disciples, remember, is a function of depending upon God rather than relying on the world. And we see that in our lives. Heaven help us. We see that in how we handle pandemic and our reliance on God in medical and in day-to-day problems. We see reliance on God rather than the world in warring attitudes and behaviors in the world. We should be showing our reliance on God rather than worldly ways and means when we approach and deal with the realities of a political culture and the harsh realities of a divided and frequently a mean-spirited nation and society. We should be relying on God. We should be relying on God. We should be fishing for people who love God and who act like it. Those whose morality demonstrates a reliance on God, on God's word, and God's way. Are we fishing? Are you fishing for people in that way in your life? Are you loving, emulating, acting in a godly, moral way? Remember that mirrors that first commandment from Matthew 22. Or are you a shepherd? Are you treating others fairly and lovingly and dealing with others and the community of humanity with all the same love that you demand for yourself? Are you really, really, really looking out for the homeless, or the sick, or the imprisoned, or the ill? Are you concerned with those who are marginalized, or victimized, or downtrodden, or those who are cast out for some reason? I'm going to be slightly political for a moment. If the church or the board wants my resignation, or the conference or the association, I can live with that. I'm gritting my teeth a little bit. I'm not sure a pastor who's delivering a sermon should be gritting his or her teeth. This past week, the richest man in the world bought a social media site for $44 billion. A social media site for $44 billion. If you could stack $44 billion in $100 bills, it would be 30 miles high. That stack, that 30-mile high stack, would weigh 440 metric tons of $100 bills. How many people who are needy or hungry, ill, poorly educated, or ill-clothed could be helped with that 30-mile high stack of $100 bills? How are we reacting to state and federal lawmakers who are demanding that people of color shouldn't hear about racism or slavery and are carrying up curricula to whitewash the notion of racial inequity out of our society. Many legislators are conveniently ignoring the inequity and the harm done to our black and brown sisters and brothers. How does that square with that first command from Jesus in Matthew 22? How are we reacting to state and federal lawmakers who are demanding that teachers and school officials not say gay? And those of you who are participating in worship this day, right now, you've adopted a promise for this church community that we be open and affirming. We have a framed notice to that extent in the narthex of the church right now to attest to that. But many legislators are conveniently ignoring the rights of our LGBTQ sisters and brothers. How does that square with that second command from Jesus in Matthew 22? I told you, and I meant it, in all of my ministry, in all of my preaching, all of my pastoral activity, all of my personal faith journey, I rely on those two fundamental new commands. And they're the test for my personal entire morality. I will leave it to you for your decision and determination if you can be counted on to be either of those types of personalities or both. Good on you. Are you a fisher? Making disciples and turning to God for decisions and action? Are you a shepherd? Looking out for those who are needy or hurting or wanting? Are you both? God bless you for either or both of those attitudes and mindsets, and for acting on Jesus' commands. Jesus knows our heart. Jesus knows our devotion. And we're challenged not by your pastor, even if it sounds like that's what I'm saying. We're not challenged by the pastor, by any church or worldly expectations, not by any preconceived notions of legal obligation. We are challenged by a Lord who knows our hearts and our level of dedication and devotion. We are challenged by a Lord who knows our hearts and our level of dedication and devotion.